It's me, Mr.Trey, the drama teacher. Here's what we're doing today. And I know I said it last class, so we're just going to do it. We're working on ways to memorize lines. Now, there's a few things that I do personally, but I'm just going to give you some quick tips on getting your memorization down. One of the easiest things to get your memorization down, to memorize things, is repetition. It happens. The more you repeat something, you'll have it memorized before you even know it. For example, you ever hear a song and you know the lyrics and you don't know how you know the lyrics? It's because you've heard it so much. It's because, that's how that works, right? So the same can be said with practicing lines, right? Keep saying them, keep going over them, keep reading them, and you'll just know them before you know them. Like, here's a good example. That Drake song. And the one that's like, right foot up, left foot slide, left foot up, right foot slide. Basically what I'm saying, need to wait about to slide. I don't even know that song. I don't even know the name of the song. I just know those are the lyrics because I've heard it so many times. That's how repetition works. Another great way to get your memorization down is notebook. Handy dandy. We just got a notebook. We just got a notebook. We just got a notebook. I wonder what it's for. Get it like Blue's Clues? Huh? Can I get a Blue's Clue right there? Let me stop. Like a pop ring. Not like blue. That's blue. That's a pop ring. Notebooks, right? I know it seems silly, but you'd be surprised how writing something down will make you memorize it. So I suggest a quick, easy thing you can do, right? Is if you have the lines that you want to remember right next to you, or if you have just anything you want to remember, look at it, the original source material of it, and write it down. And write it down word for word. I know it's super tedious. I think I had my students in my class do this once, where we wrote down a script word for word. And it's tedious, but you remember it. You remember it because you had to write it down. You're like, oh, I remember this part. I wrote that. Right here. This part right here. This, that, and the third. Right? Yeah, right here, where Cinderella lost her shoe. I remember writing this because it was a long sentence, stuff like that. So I suggest investing in some notebooks or some scratch paper and just writing it. Just writing it down. It helps. It really does. Another good tip for memorization is practice. Practice verbally, audibly. Verbally? Audibly. Out loud. Yeah, but don't just sit, granted, my suggestion would just to be to go over lines randomly. For example, when I'm trying to memorize something, sometimes just throughout my day while I'm doing something where I don't really have to be focused on anything else, where I'm washing dishes, I'll be saying my lines. Or if I'm going for a walk, taking a shower, whatever activity where it's you're just not really focused on anything, would be the time for you to focus on your memorization. Another great tip, this is something that actually Miss Hero, the creative writing teacher, taught me when I was younger. You can practice in front of your mirror, and that is a really good way to break if you have a really bad habit keeping eye contact, because eye contact with the audience is very important. So I'm making eye contact with this video right now. So eye contact is so important because it lets people know exactly where you are. It gives them something to focus on. A lot of people really like eye contact, especially from an audience's perspective. So as a performer, if you want to improve your eye contact and work on memorization at the same time, I would suggest practice performing in a mirror and just looking at yourself in the eyes, making eye contact with yourself, and that will not only help you with memorization, but also make you more comfortable with eye contact. And that practice in the mirror is helpful because you can see, you start to learn your own tells. For example, when I start to think in the middle of something, I definitely look away and I smile a little bit when I'm forgetting stuff. It's small things. You should learn those things about yourself. You should learn your tells, because once you know yourself as a performer, it's easier to cover those things up and work around them. Those are just some quick tips. Another one that, that turn my seat like this. Another one that really I have done in the past, is just me personally, is I used to hold a notebook or like the paper up to my face like this, eyes closed, and I would recite my lines or my piece or whatever it is that I needed to have memorized. And when I didn't know it, I would open up the notebook, read the entire thing, right? Close it, and then start from the top. And that would be, I suggest, this is a really good way to do it. Another good tip, a tip to trick yourself into memorizing something, right? I suggest if you play like some jazz music or some classical music or any music that doesn't have any lyrics, like just pure instrumentation, right? And you play that music while you're reading it, while you're reading over it, trying to memorize it. If you play that music, like that same music, right before you're about to recite it, it'll jog your memory because, you'll be connecting the words to the music. I don't know why it works. That's just how the human mind is. It's very amazing in that way how memorization works because we remember things all the time, but memorizing lines, the reason it becomes complicated because it's foreign, right? To write something down and then recite something exactly word for word every time. It's a foreign concept. It's not something that a lot of people do. That's why actors are held in such high regard. Not just actors, but lyrical performers as well. Yeah, those are my quick tips for memorization. If you're ever trying to memorize something, I suggest that you try these things. That's the whole point. I suggest that you try these things. Definitely stand up against your wall, staring up at the wall, and recite what you need to have memorized, or look into your mirror. Look into your mirror. Make eye contact with yourself. Write it down in a notebook. Keep your reading up. A lot of mistake that I see a lot of people make when it comes to memorization is they're not reading their source material enough. There's millions of ways to get your memorization up, and you have to find what works for you. Personally, what works for me is I like to read things over until I know it. So I'll read something upwards of 200, 300 times before I have it memorized. I'll read it, and I'll read it, and I'll reread it, and I'll reread it. And that's just to that's what works for me. And if I'm so you have to find what works for you. Those are the few things that I have listed. Not listed, but I'll list them right now for you to work on your memorization. Remember, notebooks, mirrors, repetition, classical music, jazz music, instrumentational music. Those things help, right? So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you for being here. Blue's Clues, paw print, fire hydrant, red notebook, and I will see you guys next Tuesday.